I'm going to say something to you, and you can tell me whether it's a surprise to you or not. Bryce Young is working with the first team.
No.
So you just hate Andy Dalton that much that you don't think he deserves to be the starter?
No, I don't trade all my draft capital to go up and get the number 1 overall pick, take a quarterback for him to sit on the bench. That is not a surprise.
Oh, this is a great quote from Brian Burns, who's also looking to get paid, the edge rusher for Carolina out of Florida State. He says he walks around. He's talking about Bryce Young here. He walks around with this humble, but I know I'm the S type of swag. Does that sound like Bryce Young?
Yeah, no, it exactly does. And I told you that little story on what type of kid he is, which when you're talking about humble,
yeah,
for the superstar that he is. After the season, I met with all my Alabama players on their draft status and things like that. So I had about 15 of the players shuffle through. Ryan's jaw dropped when I made a cut through and all the Alabama
Hold on. Let me back up. First of all, we're walking outside at one of the outdoor practice fields, Debo, right next to the facility, and we can't find a door. So Rick just starts banging on doors, and then Henry To'oto'o, I believe, opened the door to let you in. Like, hey, what's up? He just walked on through, and I'm just coming through there like I'm trying not to get arrested. Go ahead.
No, we're high-fiving the players coming in and everything, and yeah, well, that was funny. But I wasn't expecting him or Will Anderson to show up because I knew they were going to be, top picks in the draft. And he comes rolling in about 11:15, and I said, hey, Bryce, what are you doing here? He goes, well, I saw that you were in, and they said to come by to speak with you. So I wanted to fill my obligation, come by. We ended up having a conversation for a half hour. But that's a guy that was a number 1 overall pick in the draft, who more than likely anyone else would have I don't need to go see Rick Spielman. I know where I'm going to get selected in the draft, but because that was put on the board to come by and see me, and his college career was pretty much done except for the bowl game. He still took the time out of in between classes to come by and swing by and say hello, and we sat there and chatted for a while.
Yeah, and Miles Sanders, running back in Carolina now. So he's very sharp for a young quarterback coming in, and he adds, which is pretty funny for Miles Sanders. I don't know what Nick Saban was doing over there at Alabama, but he's doing a very good job. Young's reaction, his pocket presence, and decision-making is basically everything that's been standing out to me, and that's all you want in your quarterback, right?
Yep. So Pete Prisco will definitely be wrong on him.
Meanwhile, Pete's guy, Will Levis is I'm not going to talk about Will. I hope Will Levis has success. The problem with Pete is that he makes you so angry about the players you like that you want his players not to do well. I'm not going to fall for that trap. I hope Will Levis ends up in the Hall of Fame.
You don't actually root against the player. You root against Pete.
You root against Pete. That's right. That's how aggravating Pete is. All right, let's talk about C.J. Stroud. He went number 2 overall. And look, you said it from Jump Street. The Texans can't get out of this draft without a quarterback with those 2 first-round picks. They got the quarterback. Then they got the other guy you just mentioned, Will Anderson. So DeMeco Ryans, the new coach for Houston, former DC in San Francisco, says he's going to have an open quarterback competition between C.J. and Davis Mills, the former third-round pick out of Stanford. And DeMeco said earlier this week, the best thing I've seen from C.J. Stroud is his growth, is that he doesn't make the same mistake twice. He's headed in the right direction. So not quite the slam dunk high praise of Bryce Young, but again, we're in the middle of June. It may not necessarily matter, but I think it's trending in the right direction, right?
Yeah. No, he'll be, I would say pretty confidently that he'll be the opening day starter as long as things go well through training camp. And then he is got a bright future ahead of him. And all these young quarterbacks, when they come in, they're swimming probably the first 2 or 3 weeks of the OTAs and the rookie mini camp. And this is the point in the final mandatory mini camp and the final OTAs where things start to settle down for them. Their heads are not spinning because they're implementing so much of the offense in to see how much these guys have, what capacity they can handle. Then the coaches will group, well, he's pretty good at here. When we get to training camp, they'll have a specific plan in place to try to get him ready to go for the opener. But we both saw CJ. We saw him. We've talked to him numerous times. We saw him at his pro day. Saw him have to me, one of the best throwing combine sessions I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
So there's no question about his ability and his opportunity to be a day one starter as a rookie.
And by the way, no one's talking about the S2 test anymore.
No, that's
weird.
it's old news. Yeah.
Old news. All right, let's go to Indianapolis and look at Anthony Richardson. Top 5 pick, Anthony Richardson. And obviously the most raw of all these guys, he only started a handful of games, 13, I think, at Florida, completed less than 60% of his passes. There were a ton of concerns with the experience, zero concerns with the athleticism. And look, he makes it clear that he's still got a lot to learn, a long way to go, especially compared with guys like CJ and Bryce. But he said earlier this week, he told The Athletic, I want to learn everything right now. And I tell them, I want to know everything, but I can't because I haven't seen everything. I haven't even played my first game yet. It's just a matter of remembering I'm a rookie, but also making sure that I can be the best rookie there is. So how do you balance that, Rick? I mean, Teddy was experienced, Christian Ponder was experienced, but when you have a young quarterback in there who doesn't know what he doesn't know, how do you bring them along slowly and try to keep their confidence up?
Yeah, that's a game plan that the coaches will put in place. They'll know the best on when to, how to bring them along in training camp, how much that they are going to give them from an experience standpoint. So I imagine that he will get a lot of play time in the preseason, even though it's the preseason. And you're going to see him probably. What most rookies do is everything that they learn through these OTAs, everything they learn from schematic wise to technique wise, and then you go through those 2 weeks of training camp. As soon as you get into your first preseason game, it's like, oh my God, they go back to their comfort zone and they go back to doing what you were trying to correct,
right?
Until that becomes a comfort zone. So I can imagine that when Anthony Richardson gets in his first preseason game, you'll see him do some things, but you're also going to see him make a lot of plays and what he's most comfortable with, and that's pulling the ball down and running to make. I remember watching the first preseason game with Justin Fields in Chicago.
Yeah,
and you weren't overly, I should say, blown away with him sitting in the pocket getting through his progressions, but you were blown away about his playmaking ability and his ability to use his legs outside the pocket in the preseason, and he really stuck out. So I imagine you're going to see that same thing with Anthony Richardson. What's different is because Bryce Young has seen so much, CJ Stroud has seen so much football, they may be farther along as a quarterback. So they may be a little bit more patient with Richardson, depending on probably what they see through training camp. I don't know if he'll definitely be the day one starter, but it's not going to be too long before he gets on the field. Yeah, or you may just say have a internal meeting with the owner and the coach and the GM and just say, understanding he's not ready, but we need to throw him out there. We will put in some things that he does well, and then let's let him grow, and it's going to be a growing season for him.
And Gardner Minshew's the backup, so that's a placeholder at least for a month or 6 weeks or whatever. You actually mentioned something there, Rick. Let me ask you this. What if the owner says, listen, no one's coming to these games, or people are angry. People go to the games. It's rare that you don't see fans at NFL games. But what they say, listen, we're getting a lot of pushback in the media. The fans are angry. Just put them out there and let them play. Are you able to talk them out of that?
I've never been with an owner that has said that to me personally or to a coach. They always the ownership I always worked with respected the decision, and the decision comes down technically to the head coach and the offensive coordinator, and when the time is ready, that's what they get paid a lot of money to make those decisions, right? Because they're the ones in a meeting with them every day. They're the ones out at practice every day, so they're going to know when it's best to put them out there.